Hey, that's crazy. Though. Do you know what? I didn't expect to be doing a sort of. Hold on, why is that playing? A bit of transfer news, a bit of transfer conversation. We got a couple of topics. So transfers, obviously Carragher's quotes on not even the AFCON as such, but in terms of Mo Salah, and we've won the league, and Mo Salah needs what he needs to do to kind of win the Ballon d'Or, and obviously Sturridge as well. And then Trent versus Doku. That was an interesting topic, bro. I woke up this morning. I thought, yeah, we won, and I looked online. All I'm seeing is our fans cooking Trent, bro. I saw our fans, Man City fans. I even went and checked Doku's page, and my man's there. The first picture he's got up is Trent on the floor and him dribbling past him. I'm like, but you didn't even win the game, big man. Mike's in the building, Cav's in the building. We'll chop it up. Guys, man, transfers. Or where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the transfers or the AFCON conversation, Sturridge, and maybe winning the league? Or do you want to go Trent and Doku first?
I think Trent, because a lot of people are showing that they have a severe lack in basic fundamental logical thinking when it comes to the game of football, because I didn't see anything get cooked at all.
All right, let's go to the Trent on it. What about you?
I don't know about
Nah, I'm not eating around Mark's house because clearly he don't do any cookings over there. Trent got cooked.
I will.
He got burnt. He got roasted. It wasn't even edible at the end.
I will explain my thought process, but I don't think he got cooked.
No, I think. Look, just because Doku going past Trent didn't lead to anything, right?
Yeah,
doesn't take away from the fact that every single time he wanted to go by him, whether it's at the byline or whether it's cutting in, at one point he knocked it round him in one direction, ran round him in the other, and still got the ball again. Whatever Doku wanted to do to get past Trent yesterday, he did and accomplished it every single time. So, look, we can go on and say, oh, we know that Trent's defending isn't the best at times. His concentration isn't always there. But actually, his one-on-one defending when he knows who he's up against isn't bad, actually, at times. And we've seen him have games where he has defended quite well against some of the real top wingers in the world. But yesterday was just one of those where he quite simply just didn't know what to do to stop Doku going by him. At some points, he tried to get real tight. Didn't work. Tried to give him a yard, didn't work. Tried to drop off and let someone else sort of intervene, didn't work because Doku went past him and then still went past Trent as well. So Doku had him on toast with suspect facts. He did.
Oh, bro, I'm sorry, Trent.
I disagree.
It's okay. It's okay because at the end of the day, the final ball into the box wasn't great. You know, he didn't put it into a good area. He didn't pick out his man. And in fairness, probably because the movement and the striker wasn't there for him to do so. But one-on-one, when we just focus on that battle, Trent versus Doku won that. He did. And I would go as far to say he even, well, not Doku individually, but Trent, for me, he didn't even have one of his best performances passing-wise either, finding his range and stuff. So overall, I just think that if you're going to talk about that individual battle on the pitch, that was one of the very few that Man City actually won against us yesterday.
Go on then, Mike, because you obviously think we're making too much of it. But
I do.
Well, he caught Mike. Like, listen, before you go, Mike. Before you go,
yeah.
At some point, I felt sorry for him. I'm like, all right, Trent. Even if you gave him a yard, as Cav said, you dropped off. You got tight. No matter what he did, Doku just kept killing him, bro. And I know where you're gonna go, and I'll let you do your part. But even though he didn't get anywhere, bro.
Listen, I am one of Trent's biggest criticizers. I only have 2 streams on my channel. One of them is a FIFA stream, and the other one is an hour and a half of me talking about why Trent isn't good enough. So, I would love to sit here and say that he got cooked, but I just think that would be disingenuous. And one of the reasons is because if you look at the first game, it's almost like everyone forgot about the first time we played City and that we won 2-0 and the narrative was exactly the same. And yet we're sitting here after the second game and everyone's doing the same thing. Like, bro, take a step back and think about the design of the defense, right? There's a thing in baseball called if you're in a game and you know that you're losing, you have to send a relief pitcher out there to basically bear the brunt of the flame. It happened in the World Series this past year, right? The Dodgers were getting blown out in one of the games, and one of the relief pitchers stayed in through like 60 pitches, something that he didn't do all season, so that he could save the arms of everyone else and they would win the series in the long run. Essentially, I think Slot knew that Trent can't defend Doku. He's not going to win one-on-one battles. He's not going to win duels. And in my eyes, Trent didn't really make an attempt to drastically change the way he was defending against Doku. He seemed content with allowing him to continue to do the same thing. And not once did Doku break to the inside. Every time Doku beat him, it was to the byline. And I think that by design, what Slot told him was, if he's going to beat you, have him beat you long. Let him go to the byline, and Konate and Virgil will be there to clean up the mess, or Gravenberch will be there to clean up the mess. It was like the same exact thing as Sapio, right? If you look at the other end, Sapio was beating Robertson down to the byline, but he wasn't doing anything with it. But we don't look at that because Andy Robertson is shit in everyone's eyes, and Trent Alexander-Arnold is the best right back in the world in everyone's eyes. Yes, Jeremy Doku dribbled past him 11 times, but again, to me, what does beating someone on a pitch mean? That means that I beat you. That means I beat you in a duel, and that led to something. It didn't lead to anything. I mean, like, listen, if you want to go from the stance of, he was getting by him every time, and that's your way of defining cooking, that's fine. But I think that this was a moment where Trent had to drop his ego and basically take it on the chin. Like, as long as he beats me to this specific spot, I will be okay, because that was the one consistent. He kept beating him the same way over and over and over and over, and Trent wasn't changing. And I think he was told not to change. Let him beat you there. And also, listen, his passing this season, has it been consistent? No. Sometimes is he forced to play a diagonal? It's come to my attention that that's something that the manager could tell him. I'm all good with that. At the end of the day, his ball is what played Mohamed Salah in behind to cook Vardiol and set up Soboslai. So, if he's got 10 passes and only one of them lead to a goal, I'm happy that this is one of those games where we got one of the passes that led to a goal. But I don't see how I could say that he got cooked, because I think that everything that happened was intentional. And the reason why I think it was intentional was because it's the same exact thing as the first game. And if there's anything we know about Slot, it's that he's meticulous and he's thorough. And if I see the same performance twice, that should indicate that instructions were made that I was not privy to.
I'm in agreement with you, Mike, that it is by design. And I think, to be honest with you, I don't think there's ever going to be a game really where Slot's going to take out Trent because of what he offers to us offensively and everything else, right? So I'm totally in agreement with you that I think Slot understood that Doku would beat Trent more often than not, but he was okay with that. And I'm okay with that, because overall our team did what it needed to do to win yesterday. Yeah. So I'm cool with that. I accept that. But if you just highlight that individual battle, in my personal opinion, Doku getting to the byline and be inside the 18-yard box and being able to put a ball across the box is a scary situation to find yourself in as often as he did yesterday. Like, let's face facts, like on another day when Haaland's in there, or there's more movement from Man City, maybe a third man runner into the box, they're tapping them in. And they've been doing that for years on end. They didn't yesterday, that's okay. But just because they didn't yesterday doesn't mean I'm going to take away from the fact that that one-on-one battle wasn't won by Doku. Doku, in my opinion, won that battle. He just didn't do enough. And there wasn't enough happening from the other Man City players for that to lead to goals. But in my eyes, if he cooks him up the pitch, I don't care. If he cooks him on the halfway line, I don't care. If he cooks him, when I say cooks him, he beats him at will.
Yeah.
And gets the byline inside the 18-yard box. At some point, you've got to cut that out.
But Kev,
and he never
before
did.
You go though, Kev, let's look at this quickly, guys. So ground rules, right? Just to back up your point, Kev. He won 2 out of 14. Bro.
Yeah, he lost possession 17 times.
He's passing right 71% ain't too bad. They made 40 out of 56. I'm not gonna
50 on long balls.
Past 12 times, bro. 12 times. That's how many dribble passes he had. and
But
he won 2 ground duels.
look at what they gave Doku, bro. They gave Doku an 8.2. These things are absolutely disingenuous. They mean absolutely nothing. Bro, okay, here's why, right? Like statistically on paper, did Doku have a good game? Yes. On paper, stats-wise, he had a great game. But to the point that Cav just made, if Haaland was in there, Haaland was in there 4 months ago. Doku did the same exact thing. The narrative was exactly the same. Liverpool win 2-0. Could have been more, but Doku cooked the shit out of Trent. Okay, well, we're sitting here now 4 months later. We won 2-0. We could have scored more, but Doku cooked the shit out of Trent. It doesn't matter who is in the box for Manchester City. I thoroughly believe that Arne Slot told Trent, if you're going to get beat to the byline. Don't worry about it. Who cares if they cook you? Because we're going to win. Because I know for a fact, based on 90 minutes of previous play, that this guy isn't going to create jack shit. Created one chance, and that was his half volley. It was his half volley that he had that he didn't even create. It was I think it was either Marmoush or Foden who drove through the middle, laid it off to Doku. Doku had that little, half volley thing. And then the chance after the VAR decision, after the third goal where Marmoush pushed it wide, I think that was also created by Doku, but that was a pass from outside the box. That was like 10 yards past the box on the edge of the pitch. I mean, maybe I'm just being semantical in what I'm saying is cooking, but like if a manager tells a player to do this and the player does that, I'm not going to look past it and look at the ego and say, oh, he got cooked.
Mike,
he did his job.
Be real though, Mike. Do you honestly believe the manager went there, yo, just let Doku dribble you?
I think based off the first game in this game, it's 180 minutes against Manchester City. I think that Arne Slot knew Trent cannot defend Doku. So if he can't defend him, defend the areas around him and force him into positions. Don't win the duel, but make him go to the byline. Because I would back Konate and Virgil more than I back Trent to win that duel. And as long as Trent is in a position where he cannot cut back on his right foot and send a shot to the top right bins, which Doku is perfectly capable of doing, and he was never in a position to cut past Trent and make a shot, now he's got to pass the ball. I don't back his passing ability. I don't back their ability to get past Virgil and Konate. So it comes down to, like, what's the lesser of all of the evils if I know that you're going to beat me there? I need to put myself in a position where I can defend it the best. And I think that that's what we did every single time. And it was the same thing with Robertson.
Yeah, but Mike, if we played this game tomorrow, I would still put Trent in there, even if I knew Doku's starting. Like, I'm still putting the same team out there. I'm taking the same risks because I still believe overall as a team, Liverpool would be better than Man City and go and get the win again, right? Even if we played that game again. But I'm not going to take away from the fact that I do think that Trent should be doing better than getting beat 12 times in a single game.
Full agreement.
And
full agreement.
I hear what you're saying. Like, it didn't lead to anything. Yes, but that's
over 2 games, Cav. That's over 180 minutes.
I know, but
180 minutes.
You could look back at the past 10 years. Man City have been hitting the byline and pulling it back and scoring goals and winning league titles off the back of that. Yes, they didn't do it in 2 games and they're having a down season. But when we just look at that individual battle, I think you write it off. You know it's going to happen, but you hope that you're good enough everywhere else to go and win the game. That's how it panned out. That's how it's panned out in both ties this season. But I think for Trent, when you think about how good he is, right? And you think about the ability he has, and you think about him potentially moving on in the summer, maybe going to Real Madrid, right? If he could improve that side of his game, he genuinely could be one of the best right backs you've ever seen. You probably already feel that if you're a fan of him, right? But what's really going to hamper people's opinions of him is that being beat 12 times in one game, it instantly feeds into that narrative that he can't defend. And that's the thing, because he can. When he sets his mind to it, he can defend well. Actually, he's defended okay. Yeah, he can. He can.
No.
He can defend. He can hold a line. He can step up when he needs to. I've seen him play well against the likes of Vinny Jr. and Mbappe and these kinds of players. When he knows who he's up against. He can do it when he's focused, right? I think he can defend, not amazingly, but well in games, right? But then he will have these games where he just gets one-on-one cooked, and then that's what people believe is his level. And I actually don't. I actually think in these games, I hear your point, Mike. Liverpool got the goals yesterday, and they sat back and they were brilliant defensively, right? And Trent played his part in that because he went into midfield a little bit, but positionally he was quite sound. He was always behind Doku to be able to get beat, right?
Yeah.
But fair play, at least he was there. He weren't hanging up the pitch. He weren't moving into the 10 position. He was quite disciplined in that respect, right? And he was pulling people closer to him. People were helping covering the distances in and around him. So they were able to defend against Doku once he beat Trent. So I think Trent, in some respects, did okay positionally yesterday, but that one-on-one battle, you would just say, if he's going to try and beat you 15 times in a game, don't let him beat you 12 out of them 15. You know, that
full agreement.
You can be better there. You can,
yes.
And I know it's tough because Doku could go past anybody. That's his main asset, isn't it? Is that dribbling ability and that ability to get by somebody, right? I get it's tough, but when you know Trent in his head, he knows, right, we've got the goals, we're sitting back. Clearly, our game plan today is playing on the counter attack. I'm going to get myself behind the ball, and the only threat they really have is when this guy gets by me. I'm gonna just do better at making sure that happens less often.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is that my defense in him not getting cooked is not an advocation for the player. I still don't think that he's worth $300,000 a week. I still think that he has 1 foot in Madrid. I still do not trust him against PSG. A lot of this also has to do with the fact that I just don't back Doku. Like, I think that he's a dribble merchant and he has no end product, and he would do that to anyone. Like, any back that decided to lay off and give him the space to run at him, he's going to beat them 9 times out of 10. If I give you 2 yards, because I'm basically trying to say, go ahead, beat me to the byline. That's okay. I'm fine with that. But if I make a tackle,
though, Mike, to say, you know, because obviously you're on the defense if he didn't get cooked in it, but
I'm also not in the defense of him because I don't think he's good enough defensively, and I think we need a different profile at right back, and I think that Arne Slot wants a different profile at right back.
Bradley.
But at the same time, well, it doesn't even have to be Bradley. It just needs to be someone who's capable of defending, or at least willing to give me 100% effort every game. Like, you know, providing goals, fantastic. But like in the future, I'm sure Arne Slot wants those goals created from midfield. He wants those triangles created with the right back, and a different person is the guy who plays in the ball behind. But, you know, Trent has a history here, and
these pictures
Trent,
are so deep, by the way, man. He's grabbing his ankle. Well, not that one. So he's grabbing his shirt there, and then the other picture is grabbing his ankle, bro. He's just like, but kind of, yeah. Look, because one of the guys in the chat said, "Yo, let's talk about Robo." I'm not going to talk about Robo, but I'm just going to do a quick comparison so you can see in it. So, you know what I mean? That's 2 out of 14.
Let me just say, that's right. I think
clearances, 3 tackles, passing completion was better.
I don't like. It seemed like City were determined to play through Doku, and I really just don't understand why they decided to ignore Savio the whole game. Like, Savio did not get that many opportunities.
Robo has the fear factor, bro. That's all it is. That's
crazy.
Big bad Man City. You don't trust the other guy. Clearly, you think you can get at Trent more than you can get at Robo. That's. Are we gonna say Pep Guardiola ain't a good manager now because he opted to go the Doku route?
I don't think he's been good this season. I don't think he's been good this season.
I think to be honest, I think it was obvious with Haaland out that the main threat that Man City had going into the game was through Doku and Marmoush. And I think what he actually wanted Marmoush to do is play more of a false 9 where he was dropping in and then getting the ball and then giving it and then spinning in behind, because it was obvious that he was coming up against probably the best centre-back partnership in world football right now. He's coming up against an in-form Liverpool that are tactically really astute, work hard. And he knew that to be able to break us down, it was all centered around movement. It was pulling players out of position. And you seen Foden, especially in the first half, pulling Virgil into midfield. and there was the space in behind. So I think then the intent was for him to go into that space, and I think on one occasion he did, and he scored, but he happened to be offside. And I think the reason it panned out in such a way that it ultimately Man City were just trying to get the ball to Doku to beat Trent was because Mamouche and Foden, De Bruyne, I think the intent was for one of them to drop into pockets to pull one of the Liverpool defenders out, and then the other goes in behind and such. But obviously these are when you add Mamouche into that mix, that's a relatively new partnership. So they've obviously not worked on that much, and it didn't pan out that way. And they just fell into that trap of that's not really panning out. We can't really get behind Liverpool. There's no real space in front of the defense because the midfield's getting back and making sure that that's all compact. And it forced them to go out wide. And, and ultimately it was just drilled into them to get the ball to Doku because that's the only area we're getting some joy. So I don't think it was necessarily by design that they was just going to go to Doku every single time, but actually everything else they were trying to do weren't really playing out because of how well Liverpool was set up. And then that was the one area they were getting success, so they just stuck with it, which you could say is smart in one respect, but then also they didn't score a goal. So maybe it's, in hindsight, they probably should have thought about changing it a little bit. But I think we've not spoken about the game at all, and we've not spoken about other players in the team, which we could, wax lyrical about because there was so much that was great to see. But I think if you're going to be picky and critical, for me, I would say that the two fullbacks yesterday were the ones that weren't quite up to the level of everybody else. And I think the thing with Trent, we've spoken about him getting beat one-on-one when he's behind the ball looking at Doku and then ultimately can't stop him. Whereas Robertson was more just getting caught out. There was moments where he was diving in and he misread the flight of the ball. There was moments where, I said this week and I feel bad for saying it, but it looks like he's just done leg day and his legs look weak. Like he's just tripping over himself. It looks like he, falling over and stuff.
4 games in a row, hasn't he, Kev, as well?
Yeah. And look, is that just where he's at now? That he just can't sustain this amount of football. And he is just that bit off of it. I think it was. I've not really been on the train of needing to get Robbo out, and I've obviously wanted a new left back, and I hope we get one in the summer. But I've not really been on the train of Robbo's dawn and let's move on and this and that. But actually, over the past few games, I've seen things out of him where I'm leaning into that same sort of narrative that I think we can definitely improve in that left back position. And yeah, like I say, the team were great yesterday, but those two fullbacks, which is crazy because once upon a time they were the highlights of the team, but now it just feels like areas we can. Yeah, and it probably, I think that's fair to say. When you describe somebody like Robbo, timing's off, decision making's a little bit off at times, sometimes too easy to get by, stumbling on his feet, tripping over, yeah,
but he's been good the last 3 games, at least in my mind. Like I didn't have any issues. He was brilliant against Villa. Like he was playing in balls behind. He was creating opportunities. He was brilliant against Wolves. He hasn't been that way all season, but I also think that a couple of highlight mistakes, a handful, 2, 3, have really exaggerated our perspective. Like, I was talking to Enz yesterday about, the Saka incident in particular. Like if that didn't happen and Saka didn't score like that and it wasn't against Robbo, I seriously think that 20% of the hate for Robertson wouldn't be there. I think people would be discontent with his week in, week out performance, but I don't think that they would be going for the jugular like they are every single week. I think you could say the same thing about him getting sent off against Fulham. You could say the same thing about him conceding the penalty to Mbappe, which was ultimately saved, but still people were with the same narrative, the same move that Saka put on you. It's just you actually got your foot there. But at the same time, there's levels, and he's older than Trent. And, I would say that to me, it just looks like age is catching up to him.
I think part of it is knowing the player he was as well. Like Robbo was always pacey, very rarely got beat for pace, physically was strong. And you never seen him get muscled off of a ball, really.
As well, great as well.
Positionally sound, he right ends up and down the pitch, which actually he is still a bit down the pitch. Yeah. But now there's just those moments where when there's a physical player, a pacey or physical player that stands him up, I get a little bit concerned because I know that he's not quite the aggressor that he used to be. And the moments where he is aggressive, it's 50-50 whether his timing's right or the decision's right to go in that aggressive. And I think it'd be fair to say age, just the amount of minutes, probably catching up a little bit. I still think, like you're saying, Mike, you're right. He has still put in good performances this season, but he will because he's a good player and he's experienced. So he is still going to give you certain games that are good. He's probably going to give you really bang average games as well. But there will be these moments, I would say once or twice a game, where it really does look like, age is catching up with him because he's falling down like he's weak,
But it's also like you're talking about someone who used to be like 4 years ago was the best left back in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Once you reach that pinnacle, the second we're talking like the difference between Kilimanjaro and Mount Fiji. It's like, that's a little less impressive, but at the same time, it's still incredibly impressive that you were able to hike that mountain that's 15,000 feet tall. So it's like you're going from a 10 to a 7. But it's the gap that makes you think that he's so much worse than he actually is. It's like, no, it's just that your previous expectation has now set a bar so high that anything that's normal for anyone else, you consider to be shit, which I also think is something that plays into Robbo. Because when you deep it, like, it's not always his fault. Does he get beat sometimes? Yeah, but there's other times where it's like he's being put in a bad position and he's not capable of being able to take care of that anymore. And can I necessarily like solely blame him? No, it would be like blaming Kanate for the Arsenal game last year. Like, it's not your fault that Kai Havertz and Gabriel Martinelli were, doing 2-on-1s against you the whole game. It was bound that you were going to get sent off because you're playing against two people. So I don't know.
I agree. I think both two things can be right. I think every fullback gets beat in a game, it's part and parcel of the game, isn't it? I just find myself getting a little bit nervous when I know a player's intent is to run at him. I'm like, I'm not too sure here what's going to happen. And it's 50-50, where it never used to be. You just used to be so confident in Robbo that he would handle that situation. But like I say, if Liverpool are going to go on to win the things we expect them to this season, he can't be that bad, can he?
Well, obviously, we're going to look to kind of, I think, upgrade in that position. We're going to need some fresher, younger legs in there to kind of get us back to where we want to be. Because that younger Robbo, when he first came in with the bags of energy, shithousery, the way he could defend, and then obviously he had a younger Virgil next to him as well. Do you know what I mean? That side is just aging well. So
it was locked off. It was locked off for a long time.
Virgil, rapid, strong, quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like,
I'm not sure if you agree, but I was thinking about this driving home today. Coming on the show I was thinking, what do I want out of my fullback? And then I was like, yeah, obviously you want defensively sound, comfortable on the ball, ideally, 2-footed, comfortable on both feet so they can step inside and also, do the overlap and whatnot. But also, it would be great if we could find all of that as well as somebody that's a bit more composed in the box, because I genuinely think our left back, with the way we currently play, knowing that, the balls into the box are quite often from the right side in Trent and Salah, our fullback, the guy that's more often than not going to be free in the box because no one's going to pick them up. They'll be, our forwards and midfielders will be picked up by the opposition defense and midfielders. As a fullback, you're not expected to be there, so you're a free man. I'd expect maybe 5 goals, 5 assists from a fullback, in this current team with the amount of chances it creates. I don't know if that's me being unreasonable, but I remember one year, I think, was it Alonso for Chelsea, where he just racked up like 10 goals or something.
Playing like left wing back, wasn't he? And he was always at the back post. They did it as well with what's his face that keeps getting injured? Not Bridge. What's the other one they're trying to get rid of at Chelsea? I think they've got rid of him now. Chilwell, yeah, he was doing the exact same thing with the wing back, because you end up becoming a spare and no one picks up your run, so you end up just being in the box a lot of times free at the back stick, and you just have to just be calm and composed. I want someone like that, you're right, but at the same time, I'm just like, it's going to be difficult to find a player like that. I know that people will be like, yeah, this guy is good, and obviously we'll get to the transfer bit, but I'm just looking at it going, no, I just want him to defend. I only forget the days of I need my fullbacks to be the outlets and the creativity. I just need you guys to defend and now allow the midfield and the forwards to go and do their jobs, and you do your job. I don't think we necessarily need them now to be in the box and scoring goals. But you're right. Obviously, our fullbacks do get forward. They do the inverted runs, and they do some overlaps. Robbo does more than Trent does, and yeah, they do get in the. But I think even in this one, I think Virgil told one off to Robbo, and he swiveled on his right foot and skied it. So it was just like.
There was that one, and then there was a cross into the box that found its way to him, and he was like 5 yards out from the goal, and he decided to hit, press and hold square on the keypad. And I was about to message you and saying, he changed his controls because he crossed it at maximum power from about 5 yards out.
I don't understand why, bro. It's just like he's one of those players. He just gets overexcited, probably like similar to what Darwin's got, and he just gets mad overexcited, too rash when he just be calm, bro.
Isn't it?
Well, if you're gonna go with this, like if we're gonna go with the narrative of legs and age, then you have to kind of consider that when he's running up and down the pitch, his legs are heavier than when he was younger. If his legs are heavier, he's not going to be he's not going to be able to put the same finesse on anything, right? It's going to be more likely that he overhits or underhits. He's not going to have that same accuracy. Which is why I think, like, at least in the modern game, to me, the most important thing in having a fullback is he's got to be young and he's got to have energy. Like, that's the most important thing. Forget defending, forget offensive prowess. You have to be able to get up and down the pitch for 90 minutes and not lose your physical abilities. If you can do that, you can be taught where to stand. You can be taught. I mean, listen, obviously, there's certain instinctual things that scouts looking for players, but to me it's just like it's a stamina-based position in the modern football era, and you have to be able to be fresh for the 90 minutes, and I just don't think that Robertson's able to do that. So when you see him get by everybody and it's the 70th minute of the game and he hits one 60 yards high, it's like, well, putting myself into the body of a guy who's old, whose legs have gone, I'm sure it's next to impossible to lift your left foot that probably feels like a brick and perfectly place a pass on a ball that's moving at full speed. It's maybe it's like I don't know. I'm just thinking more from like a physical perspective and trying to give him some benefit of the doubt. Yeah. But whoever we get in, like I think Kirkes would be fantastic. Someone who has shown the ability to get in there and score. But that's not that's not what I'm looking for. I need you to be able to defend, positional awareness, but most importantly, I need 90 minutes out of you where I know that I'm not losing anything. And if you can do that, fantastic. I just think that we're evolving to a point where we're not going to be seeing the likes of Kyle Walker's or the likes of, Andy Robertson's or any fullback for that matter playing until they're 30. I don't see how you could do that and maintain the type of pace that you'll need because, if you look around the Premier League right now, everyone's focusing on wingers. Everything is about wingers. All the best players in the league are wingers. Right? Like this is not a striker-based league anymore. It's about pace on the wings. And in order to beat pace on the wings, you have to have pace at the fullbacks. And unfortunately, it's next to impossible to find someone who's 30 years old who could at least keep up with Doku, let alone beat Doku in a race. Maybe his name is Kyle Walker, but we all see how that went. And now he's
we know that ain't Trent, is it? Trent ain't going to be the one beating him. Shifting the conversation, guys, about the conversation that Carragher was it Roy Keane and Sturridge was talking about Mo Salah and Ballon d'Or and AFCON and just a lot of things that was kind of said to see the reasons why Mo Salah hasn't been in the conversation or should he be in the conversation this season. If he only wins the Premier League, should he still just be like the main guy for Ballon d'Or or does he have to win the Champions League as well to actually win it? Because where was he best placed? Was it like fifth or fourth one season?
Well, which perspective are we talking from? Are we talking from a logical human being or are we talking from an absolute psychopath insano who votes?
So logical I'd rather go with, but I've always looked at you have to win the Champions League. That's the way I've always kind of seen it. And then you kind of win a major within that year as well, in terms of maybe like a international trophy or your league title as well. And then I know you're a shoe-in for it. I mean, for some reason, Salah, even when we won the Premier League, they still didn't have him as.
But he didn't even have these numbers. Like he's got
But he was still
41
doing
GA.
well. It wasn't like he was
Yeah,
doing poor. He was
but
still
he's
scoring
got
and assisting.
the only team that he hasn't scored or assisted against this whole season in the league is Nottingham Forest, and we've played everyone at least once. So he's scored or assisted against everyone in the league. He's got 41 GA in 27 games. He could easily go 30-20, which is something that will never be done again. He's already gone 25-15, which has never been done. What he needs 6 more assists to flat out break the assist record.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, bro, if you have 50 GA and you win the Premier League, I don't understand. Like, it would be different if, you know, Rafinha was on 50 GA in La Liga, or if Vinny was on 50 GA in La Liga and Real Madrid or Barcelona ended up winning the Champions League.
But what if, you know, Rafinha wins La Liga and the Champions League?
I think you have to look at what, from a logical perspective, you would have to look at what is his GA in those competitions.
But he's balling out, like in terms of like scoring and assisting, he's up there as well. He's not on obviously Salah's number, but it's not like Salah's
if he wins both those major honors and he's in the same, like, let's say, you know, for the intent of argument, Mo Salah ends with 50 GA. He's got 30 goals, or you know, 51, so that he breaks Henry's record. 30 goals, 21 assists. Rafinha finishes with 48, but Rafinha takes La Liga and the Champions League, or even 45. At that point, I would say, okay, the dude won 2 major honors. He scored a bunch in the Champions League. He had 45 GA in the Liga. I think that in that scenario, yes, like the logical thing would be to give it to Rafinha, even though my bias would say still give it to Salah for breaking all these records and winning the Premier League. But 2 trophies is always going to be better than 1. And if you get a double and you have a crazy season, like, you know, pundits are going to be pundits.
I think the records only come into play, like for me anyway, only if you win something. Because they I'm not going to say they're meaningless or anything like that, but I feel you have to win something to then highlight, oh, but I did this and I done that and I broke this and I broke that. But without winning anything, yeah, we get it. Like, yeah, you broke some records, bro, but no one's going to be like,
but if you,
oh, that's the reason why you should win the Ballon d'Or.
2 is always going to be better than 1, though. So it's like, you know, this argument, if we're going to talk about major honors, it's like, well, whoever gets 2 trophies is always going to paramount the person who gets 1 from the perspective of how these things get voted for. Like, personally, I would still give it to Mo. If Mo had 30-20 and we win the Premier League, I'm like, this is supposed to be the hardest league of the world. This is supposed to be the most competitive league with the best players. And he broke a record that probably will never get broken again. And he won the Premier League. You should give it to him by default. But based on, you know, how other things have been voted, you know, unless you're Messi and you put up 70 GA in a season, sure, you know what, maybe you don't have to win anything because you had 93 goals in a calendar year. That's just never going to be touched again. Although I think he did win multiple trophies in both those seasons, but 2 will always be better than 1. So if someone gets the double, they're probably going to get over him.
What do you make of Cav? I'll bring it in terms of the AFCON, because that was kind of a part of conversations in the past as well, that no one kind of looks at it as a major trophy one. They more look at Euros and obviously the World Cup as being the major 2, and Copa America. They don't really kind of, but I feel like they do rate that higher than the AFCON as well. But in the past, it's like one of the reasons why he probably hasn't been up there is because he hasn't won that trophy while he's had a good season as well for Liverpool, where, say for an example, I don't know, like one of the Spanish guys would have probably won Euros and won the La Liga and then maybe a Copa del Rey as well on top of that. And then they've gone, oh, that's the guy that should get it. Where Mo's probably like won the league and, you know, didn't really do well in the AFCON because obviously his team ain't that great, to be fair. But what do you make of that?
The thing is, you just got to look at the the quality level of the competition. And I don't mean this in an offensive way, because I think AFCON is a great tournament. It's really enjoyable, honestly. And, you know, the football that's played is really enjoyable to watch. But when you look at the actual quality and you compare it against some of the European competitions, it's, in my opinion, it's not quite up to that level of footballing standards. So I think it should play a part, because ultimately it's an opportunity for an individual to showcase their ability, and if they're good enough, they'll lead their team to the finals of that competition. But ultimately, what are you competing against? Because otherwise we might as well start considering championship players, you know, League One players, because it's still a competition. There are probably still players that are doing well in that league at that standard that are getting loads of goals and assists, but you've got to compare it to the other standards of competition, and it's just unfortunately not up there. I hope, well, not that I hope, but it'll be nice to see that standard increase to a point where it matches some of, you know, the Euros and things like that. But we'll see, and maybe at such a point when it does, and that coefficient goes up for them nations and stuff, it will be factored in to the Ballon d'Or a bit more seriously for them individual awards. But it just is what it is for now. I think I would love for the Ballon d'Or to be awarded to the best individual player and not count trophies, because it's an individual award, and I'd like every player to be assessed individually, and the winner made up of just that. But there is also you know, you could make the argument that, look, if you're really the best player in the world, which effectively the Ballon d'Or is telling you are, then you've got to be leading your team to glory. You can't be the best player in the world and just have nothing to show for it at the end.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If you're really that good, you will win stuff. You know, it works hand in hand. I think that Liverpool go on to win the Premier League this season. They've got a good chance at the Champions League. I think even without the Champions League, Salah should be right up there, because the numbers are just ridiculous. And like Mike says, they're way ahead of everybody else around Europe. So it's a big enough gap to really be taken on it. When you just look at the goals and assists, you add a trophy into that, you know, effectively we're in a final as well, so there could be a domestic cup thrown into that. But I think if you know, Real Madrid obviously through to the next round of the Champions League, if they go on to win the Champions League, I think they're joint top of La Liga, aren't they? They could go on to win that, and then you could look at the same players again, Mbappe and Vinny and stuff, and say, well, they've won the two major honours that they're competing for. How could you argue against it? Everybody's going to have their own opinion. And like I say, mine is one that I just almost like us to forget the trophies and just count what the performances are like in the GA, but it's just not the way it works. So
I was listening to also as well with Rio Ferdinand earlier, and he was talking about obviously like Salah and the Ballon d'Or and obviously the AFCON as well. And he was just saying about, you know, maybe there's not enough money invested in the AFCON. That's why it doesn't get the respect it deserves. And then he also spoke about like African players, how many of them are around the world that contribute to like the European teams and make them a better team as well. So yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And then how much it just gets kind of looked over as a major tournament, but it is. Enough funding isn't there, isn't it? So you're just like in Savage in the chat saying he saw deck chairs. I did as well. But yeah, and I wish it was looked at higher, because I think that's the only thing that's keeping Mo Salah from like Ballon d'Or, because it feels like we just turn our nose up at the AFCON sometimes, and not we on here doing that, but I feel like even if you would have won it, they'd just be like, nah, that's all right. It's not Euros, it's not the World Cup. You know what I mean?
That argument is correct about funding and broadcasting and everything else, but also the same can be said for the first point you made, where those players that originate from Africa are leaving Africa to play in Europe. So you know, there's only so much they can say on that argument, because if they were really serious about, you know, improving the stature of the game in Africa, then they'd have stayed there, and they'd have been the best player that they have become, you know, and they would have showcased it, and they would have drawn attention to those competitions, and they'd have drawn that money to it, because they'd have drawn spectators, and that would have over time have increased the stature of the game. But they've not. They've left to come play in Europe because they want to go to teams where they can feel like they can improve their game better. They want the money, they want the PR, and they want the trophies, and that's where they are. So I don't know what needs to happen for it to change. Maybe it will boil down to more investment and trying to build that game. I think as time's gone on, AFCON has become a much more popular and watched competition in Europe as well. And I quite like when it comes around because it's got a different feel about it, and I mean that in the politest way possible. It's fun. It is. They are fun games to watch, but then you've got to bring it back to, well, what's the actual standard?
It's the standard. But yeah, listen. He also said obviously he thinks the race is kind of done and Liverpool are gonna win it.
Did you see what Sturridge said? Did you guys see what Sturridge said at halftime about the game?
What did he say at halftime?
I mean, the fact that this guy is getting paid by Sky Sports is hysterical, because at halftime he said, I would imagine that Pep Guardiola is going to bring Erling Haaland on the pitch in the second half. This dude didn't even know that Erling Haaland wasn't suited up. That is how it is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous that a person who gets paid to talk about football doesn't know the game that he's talking about. Like, maybe I'm nitpicking and being pedantic about details, but like,
I think you are nitpicking.
I think he's all right, Studge. I think he's okay. And do you know why? I remember when I think it was his first appearance with Sky Sports, and he said a few things where it was like all the other pundits were looking sideways at him. And over time, he's kind of just worked his way in, and he's changed the sort of atmosphere that's there. And like we've said it before, haven't we, Jens? Like when you watch CBS with Kate and Marco Richards and Carragher and Henry, it's much better viewing. It's so much more fun. It's so much more enjoyable. They actually, just have a laugh and a joke. And over on Sky Sports for so long, it's been so serious. And what's now TNT is the same. It's boring, and they need personalities like this.
Yeah.
Come into the game and just make that coverage actually a bit enjoyable to watch. Of course, we want to talk football and we want to analyze the game. We would love for some tactical and insights from previous players and this and that, but also we want some enjoyment. We want some personality and fun. Yeah. And I think he brings that. But it was a slip. I think it was just a slip up because actually I think he speaks quite well. And he does come out with some stuff that demonstrates he's got some footballing intelligence.
I'm just being an asshole.
But at the end of the day, Pep could have brought on Haaland. At the end of the game,
he was on the Real Madrid bench, and he went on for the bench against Real Madrid. But
I do just want to say one quick thing about the AFCON, because to me, I hate the fact that international tournaments are tied into the Ballon d'Or. Like, I think that for international, there should be a separate award, because international is a fraction of a season, and anything can happen in those tournaments. And that's playing for your country. It's a completely different style of football. And like the year that Messi won it because he won the World Cup, I'm like, okay, but are we just going to ignore what Erling Haaland did in this Manchester City, treble season? Like, to me, that's absurd. And regardless of whether or not, because also, personally, I don't even think that Salah performed exceptionally week in, week out in those tournaments. I know that he lost in the final to Sadio Mane, but if you were to deep it, it's not like his stats were, it's not like he had 15 goals in the competition and he was blazing everyone away. He wasn't. And I just personally feel that when it comes to the Ballon d'Or, we need to draw a line, and that line should be at international football. Unless, of course, you do like a Miroslav Klose and you score 15 goals in a World Cup and your team wins the World Cup, and it's like, okay, it's undeniable. We can't look past this. It's the greatest performance of all time. But outside of that, that's just my own personal opinion. I don't think that the weight should be the same. I think Erling Haaland got robbed that year. But that's just the way that I see it.
I mean, another argument, I suppose, could be that the best players find a way of performing despite what team they're in.
True. Yeah.
And actually, they make others around them better as well. So you could factor that in as a way of evaluating, is this player worthy of receiving one of the most major individual honors? Is how good is he when we take him out of the team he trains with every single day of the week and put him into
then Salah would have to win it, Cam. Salah would have to win it because there were pundits who didn't even put Liverpool in the top 4. Not a single pundit said that we were going to win the league, and he's got 70% of our GA.
Well, and part of the argument is also that it's been said that people don't believe that Salah could do what he's doing right now outside of Liverpool, because let's face it, and I think they spoke about it after the game, this team is built around him. You know, I think that we've got loads of, you know, offensive outlets in our team, but most of those roads lead to Salah, you know, and I mentioned it to you yesterday, and so we were saying our game plan is get the ball to Salah, whether it's, you know, Salah, bro. Yeah, whether it's the right thing to do at the time or not. The players, when they get up the pitch, they just have it in the subconscious of their mind to where's Salah, you know, where to find him, you know. But the good thing is that when we are finding him, we're finding him in good areas that he can find a yard of space, get a shot away. If he's further out wide, there's movement in the box for him to try to pick out a cross. You know, there's a third man run from midfield that's hitting the byline, that then his weight of pass is brilliant to pick out as well. So Boszalai probably could have had a second goal yesterday if he had a better finish on him in that moment. So I don't say it as a bad thing, although I would like for us to be a little bit more diverse in the way that we attack and the numbers that we get spread a bit more across the side. But the good thing is that ultimately Mo Salah's in a current form and has been this season, whereby when you get the ball to him, there's enough else happening around the pitch that he's actually then picking the right option, and it's leading to goals more often than not. So I think it's just another argument to question him and say, I know Egypt don't have the best side, but if you are the best player in the world, which is effectively what we're calling you by giving you the Ballon d'Or, how high should he be taking Egypt? You know, what could we expect from a player that's that good? And look, Messi's got quality players at Argentina, but he raises their game, he improves them, you know. And Salah's never going to get, well, he got close to winning the AFCON with Egypt, but what of a player of that ability that's the best in the world, how high do you think he could get that current crop or the generation that he's played within at Egypt too? And then you could judge him off of that. I don't know is the honest answer, because I don't know too many Egyptian players and what their standard is. But
yeah, nah, listen, it's I don't know, because I don't even know if I really rate it anymore, to be fair, Cav, as well, man. I know it's obviously something the players want to win because it shows that they're the best player in the world. But even I'm just like, I think it's just been so watered down now. I don't know. I don't even know if it's even they're doing it with a bit of honesty now as well. I don't know if they're even doing that. It just feels like they just already picked the winners that they think they should just pick, and then it's done. I felt like before in the past, it used to be like all the players voted, and then it was like, we recognize you as the best player in the world. I know the players still get a vote now, but even then, I'm just like, did everyone really vote for like this guy? Or like, what's going on? Are you really watching him, or you just see like highlights of him? You know what I mean? Because you guys are playing as well. So are you actually watching to see if this guy's performing in all the games, or are you just going off of what we've seen on TV as well? But it used to be like, this player is cold and he should get it.
Here's one for you then. So Liverpool win the Premier League. We win the Carabao Cup. And we win the Champions League, right?
Yeah.
So we're all talking about Salah. Do you think that Salah should win the Ballon d'Or ahead of Virgil?
Yes.
Yeah, because of his goals. Even though it's going to be tough because Virgil has been cold as well.
Because Sav said the other week, right? I'm sure he said this, that Virgil's the best player in the world. And I thought about it for about 2 seconds, and then I agreed, because I was like, yeah, he actually is. I like Mo. Well, I love Mo. I think he's incredible. I think he's one of the best players in the world on current form. I think he's had an incredible season. He's played a massive part, obviously, but I can't yet put him above Virgil. And I'm purely basing that off performances, because I believe that Virgil is that good. I still just have him just slightly ahead.
Yeah, but the issue is the fact that, like, we've conceded too many goals. Like, I think that if we were having a Chelsea-like run where it's looking like we're going to concede less than 20 goals in a season, I'd say, okay. But because Salah is on pace to have 30-20 and we're on pace to probably look like we're going to average a little less than 1 goal a game, say maybe we'll concede like 30 out of 38, which would put it at like 1.9, 1.85. I'm sorry, 0.85, 0.9. For that reason alone, I would say that it would have to go to Mo. But that's also just because like the way that everyone views the game is by goals and it's not by defense. And when we look at it, Virgil's better season to win it was when Messi beat him. Virgil didn't get dribbled past once, and we won the Champions League. Not a single person in a season dribbled past Virgil van Dijk, and we won the Champions League, but he didn't get it because it was Messi on the other side. So I see the argument. I just don't think that it's possible.
I don't want to strengthen the argument for Virgil by discrediting Mo, right? But like Mo, I've just said our team is based around getting the ball to him, right? And there's quality around him and there's hard work around him. That he is playing in a side where there's an opportunity there every game to create, get goals, get assists, especially when he's taking penalties, right? But brilliant, he's done it, okay? But Virgil for 90 minutes, week in, week out, is perfection. Like perfection. Aerially, wins every duel. On the ground, wins every duel. Sets the line for the defense, drops back when he needs to, steps up when he needs to, goes touch tight when he needs to, never commits a foul, like wins every ball that comes into the box, positions everybody else, leads the team. Like every aspect, every statistic you could judge him by, he maxes out. And I also think that if he wanted to, he could just go play in midfield if he wanted. If he wanted to go up front for a while, he could do well at that. It's just sometimes footballers are just, there's just always that one guy in a team that's just so good. He could just do whatever he wants, where he wants. And he's just got that ability. And that's Virgil. Like, and I just think the way that we view the game, you're dead right, Mike, where the excitement comes through scoring goals. So obviously we're going to judge forwards that get goals and assists above defenders. I get that. But Virgil is just so unique in my eyes in the sense that he's beyond a footballer. He's beyond a defender. He's just the best footballer, hands down. And I might even look into the statistics to see if I can back up my argument. But if you're rating him at a 10, he's an 8 or 9, if not a 10, every single week. And yes, we can see goals. Yes, we probably don't have as many clean sheets as we perhaps should. I don't think that's down to him most of the time. And then if I'm right in saying we've only lost 1 league game this season, and we've lost to what in the Champions League, we lost to Feyenoord in a dead rubber, which he didn't play in. Like, I know it's not Chelsea of Mourinho's statistics, but still, it's an incredible season that he's putting in. And for me personally, I'm not going to argue if we win everything and Salah gets the Ballon d'Or and Virgil comes second. I'm still smiling, but I just never want to. I said it when we spoke about him before. I just never want to miss an opportunity to say that he is the best defender I will ever see in my life, and probably one of the best footballers ever as well.
That's his stats cav bit, by the way, in the Premier League.
Wait, who beat into aerial duels? I need to know that.
I haven't checked. Might be like Gabriel or someone or Tom.
Nah, take back the last 30 seconds. Actually, second, what's this?
No, but overall in the Prem, minute. Like to be fair though,
and aerial duels one, is that the quantity of duels or is that the percentage of competed against?
I don't know if it's the percentage.
Yeah. Because we have possession more often than not, so we're not competing as much in the air as other defenders perhaps are. So
that's why he's topping, minutes played, and he's topping the passing as well. He's also topping.
You want to know who's higher than him? It's
Gabriel.
Nope.
Who is?
I mean, neither of you guys would ever guess this. It's Dan Burn, and Dan Burn has 95. You know who's right behind Virgil? Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and then right behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin, James Tarkowski, and then right behind James
Tarkowski. Bro, like this guy, he's always injured. So he just can't just win there.
Bro, he's got 84. He's got 2 less, and then behind Tarkowski is Nathan Collins with 81. So if you look at all the other teams there, they get attacked way more than Liverpool does, and yet somehow Virgil is sitting at 9 behind Dan Burn.
What this stat doesn't tell you as well is they may have won the header, but Virgil won the header, took the ball down, drove into midfield, and then played a raking pass out to 40, 60 yard diag out to Salah. That's what it doesn't tell you, because that's the other side of it as well, right? Is when I remember like before he came in, we'd have Skirtle and Agger. Well, Agger was decent. I'm not gonna just go. We had Skirtle and these guys that you thought, they're big, they're strong, they'll win headers. The physical. No. Positionally, they were all over the place at times. Duels were often 50-50s. Even if they won the header, it was being put out for a throw-in, so you're still under pressure. If they won the header, it's going straight back into a 50, another area that can be competed. Virgil wins his headers, but he's passing with his header as well. He's going, I'm going to go up for this duel, but also I'm going to head it down to you, McAllister.
What was the one when he flicked it behind him and turned around and ran it down? Like he was getting chased by the striker, chasing and nodded it behind him.
First time he did it,
I was like,
against Brighton, and I remember it so well because I was just like, never seen this before in my life. And then he did it earlier on the season. You're dead right. It's ridiculous, sense. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's not just an aerial duel won. It's regaining possession and setting your team on their way. And you're never going to be, the statistics are never going to be able to tell you what that kind of composure gives your team. And that's why they all trust him so much at the back.
Play a bit now. All right, man. Let's talk about some transfers then, because I picked 3 players that I would like to see join the club. Whether or not they will join, I don't know. But the 3 that I picked was Jared Brumthwaite. I think he's the guy. I remember saying it. Was it not last season? Was it last season? I want to say last season. I was like, nah, he's the kid still. I think we should go and get. But he was at Everton and was just like Man United wanted him and stuff like that. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. But I think because of his height and he's left-footed and he's good at passing, he's good in the air, and he's got years to kind of grow. I thought, that's the guy. Hato now spent a lot of this. I say since November. I want to say December. Sorry. I mean, from December, I started paying attention to his games a bit more. We did a watch along on our Big Up channel to who was it? Who was they playing? It weren't the Finewood one. It might have been a European game, but he was playing well in that one. He got a couple of assists and a goal. But yeah, he looks really, really good for me. And then obviously Isak is the other one. I think we should go and get. Those are the 3. So my question is, to everyone in the chat, to you guys as well on the panel, what 3 do you think we should go and get in the summer? And we're not talking about the other guys staying or going. I'm just talking about 3 players in 3 positions you think 100% we kick on next season and go again. Because for me, I think them 3 would just be beautiful.
Shall I say 1, and then Mike, you can say 1, and then we can a little bit. Yeah. I quite like, and I know he's got a bit of publicity of late, but the centre back at Bournemouth, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Dean Huijsen. Yeah. I think he's 19, 20, something like that.
Yeah.
But Bournemouth obviously having a great season, but I have actually watched them a little bit, and he does look like a really good player. And I just feel like he's a player that if we can keep hold of Virgil, we can really mould into and educate. And I think he could be a real modern day defender. Probably still needs to grow a little bit, I would say, still a bit lean. But I think that he's got, from what I've seen, some ability there that we can really work with. Bournemouth obviously had a really good season. Not quite sure what sort of price you can get him at, but it just seems to be a player that could come in and go on to the next step in his game. So I quite like him, and also in an area that I think we're going to need to strengthen as well, because I do think that Gomez will move on. Worrying links for Konate and PSG and Real Madrid and stuff over his sort of contract situation at the minute, and obviously Virgil. We don't know if that's going to get resolved. But either way, even if Konate hopefully stays touchwood and Virgil the same, and Gomez moves on, which I think we all expect, then we're going to need to bring somebody in. And I think that Premier League experience as well now. Good season with Bournemouth. Style of play feeds into. He's a good prospect, I think. So yeah,
50 million euros as well. 50 million pound. They said in his release clause apparently. So
yeah,
maybe that's something to kind of look at.
Well, if that release clause is there, you're not getting him for less, I would say.
What about you then, Mike?
For a player that I would want for us to get in the summer. Okay, really quickly before I do that, I know that Cav said something about percentages, and I just calculated them. Virgil's percentage was 71, and Dan Burns was 64. So Virgil has less, but he has a better success rate on aerial duels, and also for all the stat merchants out there. ChatGPT is amazing for football stats; it's crazy. When it comes to a player that I would want, I'm gonna go with what I would demand of the club, because I am a harsh critic of our financial standings and the way that we're run, and I'm privy to information because Google is just a vast knowledge pit, and Deloitte does all of these audits every season. I think we're going to get rid of Darwin, which means that we're selling him. And if we're selling him, then we'll probably sell him to Saudi for 65, 70 million, even if we get 60 million. I think we're going to win the Premier League, which gives us a lot of money. We finished the summer with 40 million. I think if the one caveat is that this team has to finish outside of the Champions League, but I would demand that we go after Alexander Isak, because I think that if you get a striker like that in this side with Mo Salah, with Cody Gakpo, it's perfect, because Isak can drop. He's got technical ability. He's got an amazing shot. He can head the ball. Yes, he's going to cost you a pretty penny, but you know, if I win the double, I want to spend on a pretty penny. I don't demand it every season. Most of the time I say go for the guys 30 to 60 million, maybe 80 million. But, you know, I just feel like that's a player that if you were to somehow get him, he would solve so many issues, not just like in terms of scoring goals, but he would then make everyone else around him better, because now I have a focal point that the other team has to focus on more. Not only do I have to worry about Salah, but now I have to worry about Isak, which then will create more space for the other players that I might not rate so highly. So let's say I don't rate Szoboszlai that highly and I want a different 10. If I had Isak in there, that's buying Szoboszlai more space. Or let's say, you know, I don't rate, you know, McAllister in the 8 so highly. Okay, but they're not going to be able to overload the midfield as much because you have Isak there. And all I have to do is dink it over, and it's not Darwin Núñez. So I can play Russian roulette with Darwin Núñez, because you never know on the day if he's going to hit the target. But against Alexander Isak, I can't play Russian roulette. I can't take that risk. So I know it's unrealistic, but you know, to me, that would be like my.
Why is it unrealistic though?
Well, I mean, just knowing FSG, knowing our club, knowing our history. Just knowing Michael Edwards.
But what if the manager, because obviously he hasn't bought anyone, right? And that's
yeah.
Maybe he just goes, I just need 3 players. I need you guys to sort out my other 3's contract, and then I just want you to sign these 3 players for me. Isak is one of them because we need a striker. I can't see them saying like, nah, we can't do that. We won't do that.
No, listen,
I honestly can't see them saying no.
Maybe, but also, you know, another reason why I'm reserved with transfers is just I just know how Edwards operates, and historically speaking, like we never know who we're actually getting until like the announcement comes from Fabrizio Romano, and it's here we go. It's like you're linked with all these players, and then out of left field, oh, Luis Diaz signed already. What? I didn't even know that we were looking at him. You know, to me, this would be like a marquee. But realistically, I think that we're probably going to be looking at, you know, the likes of guys in the 30 to 60 to possibly 70 million price range, which historically would be how Edwards operates, trying to find gems, implement them into a system, and let the manager turn them from a 50 million player to a 100 million player. And, you know, we have a historical basis that we can look back on and say that worked. And we even have one this season with Arne Slot, you know, looking at the players that we bought last season for the prices that we did. All of those are clearly exponentially higher based on our performances this season. And the only change in the whole system is that we went from Jurgen Klopp to Arne Slot. You know, I would say that I don't think that Ryan Gravenberch is worth 30 million anymore. And I surely don't think that Alexis McAllister is worth 32 million anymore. And I would even say I don't even think that Wataru Endo is worth 15 million anymore. But yeah, sorry for the long answer. Isak, get him. I'm a happy boy.
What's your next player, Kev?
Yeah, I was deliberating because I think Sav brought up a guy that we've both thought that could do well at Liverpool in Mbeumo, which I'm still on that train of thought because I just think Premier League experience, mid-20s, strong dribbling ability, left-footed. Quite often for Brentford, he's been the main outlet. I know they've got Wieser, who's a good player. They had Tony, obviously in years gone by, but Mbeumo's been a mainstay there and he's done well. So I do like him and I think he's got ability that does well. But I'm not going to go with him though. I'm going to go back to Kudus, West Ham. I don't know how expensive he would be. I don't know how practical he would be, but I just think when he's firing, he's unstoppable.
Stoppable.
Yeah, he is. He's just got that ability that almost Sadio Mane had a little bit, where he can win the ball back with it facing his own goal, and then he just has this strength and this languidness to sort of turn on the ball and drive forward into space as well. And then he's got good footwork and ability to beat people. And when he's in front of goal, looks like he can finish as well. So I know that when he joined West Ham, his stock really rose, and maybe it's leveled off a little bit and dipped a little bit. But I still think for a player in his mid-20s, I just think he's got that raw aggression and ability that could just really serve well if coached correctly at Liverpool. And I'm not sure what his best position would be if he joined the side, but I'd put him in that left wing spot and just see what he could do. And I think he'd be great. Even on occasion, stick him in the 10 and give him that license to roam a little bit as well. And I think he could do really well. So, Kudus is one that I'd like us to have a look at. But again, I don't know how practical it is because I'm not quite sure what that fee could be.
No, fair.
And also the AFCON thing, he would obviously go away and stuff. So that plays a little bit.
I think they've said they're moving it now more to the summer, so which will help. Yeah, which will help massively in it.
Yeah. Seems like as well. Just finally, it seems like he's got that. I think he will leave West Ham this summer, if not next. I don't know what his contract situation is and what deals and interests are and things like that. But he just strikes me as a player that's going to have that desire and ambition to take the next step. And I think he'll get to a point where he'll feel like he'll want to win major honours and he'll move away. And I'd like us to have a look at that one.
Big up, G-Man. Welcome to the stream, bro. We went back to front this time. We went from Trent versus Doku to now we're ending with the transfers. We're kind of just looking at players that we would like to get in the summer to strengthen this team. And he's just rounding it down to 3 transfers instead of like a wholesale of sales and buy, you know what I mean? So the ones that I've mentioned is obviously Isak, Hato, and Bramthwaite. Those are the kind of 3, 1 defender, 2 defenders, I should say, a left back, centre back, and a striker. And I think the other boys can kind of run it again with the talent we have. But there's another player that I recently just saw, that man like Dave O'Cop just mentioned, saying the Times and Liverpool monitoring Florian Wirtz. He's another one that I really want as well. And if we get him in the 10.
Yeah. Who doesn't want Wirtz in it?
I mean, sorry to cut you.
Yeah, no,
if we win the Premier this season and we continue to go as far as we were all expecting the Champions League and stuff. I know it's a conversation we've had so often, but like it's the level of player I just disregard, even still, just because of our sort of transfer policy. And I'm all right with our transfer policy because it's generated a side that's able to go and win Premier Leagues now. But should we be thinking actually, if we win the Prem, win a domestic cup, hopefully we'll win the Champions League. But let's be realistic, I think we'll win we'll get to a semi-final or final. is this the sort of, you know, is this the sort of caliber we should be looking at? You know, is this what's going to cement, you know, the title charges for the next few years? And also, if we're going to lose somebody like Mo Salah, do we need to replace, you know, it with somebody of this quality?
Like Florian Wirtz comes in, that's a marquee. Isak, that's a marquee. Branthwaite, I think he'll be a marquee as well. I think he's a top talent. Hato he's young still as well, but I think he can come in and offer, you know, what we need as well. That's the young, energetic. He can play and he can defend. And then maybe we go and get a defensive style midfielder if you want to add to that. Now, maybe we're asking for too much, but Belieber is the one that had a CG do his, you know, video on earlier on, and I've heard a few guys mention him. So you go and get those, Cav. Like, I'm just talking about just those. What am I talking? 1, 2, 5 signings? I don't think that's a lot, because if you look at maybe Wataru leaves, for an example, so Belieber can come in to replace that. You say Darwin leaves, Isak will come in to replace that. So you're not, bulking up the squad even more. You're just replacing. One of the left back goes, Hato coming in. And then you've got a centre back in there as well. So you're like, we need one regardless. So we don't necessarily have to let anyone go. We got 4. But Gomez, you know, you're probably going to say maybe leaves, maybe not. I don't know yet. Let's see what happens. Kwanzaa is still very young and he's developing, but he's not the finished article yet. So you're only really relying on Konate and Virgil. If you just add those signings, as I just said, I don't see how we lose games of football. I ain't even going to lie to you guys, especially if Virgil's still there.
Don't lose games of football now, Enzo, let alone.
I know, but
it's just like the way I like to look at it is, when it comes to buying players, the only offensive player that I would be willing to entertain who plays in the Premier League is Alexander Isak, right? Anyone else who is a Premier League proven player, who is an attacker, plays for a team that is just at a completely different level than Liverpool, and I don't think that their traits will translate to the way that we play. Like, you know, Mbeumo, fantastic player, but he plays for Brentford. Completely different style. I don't think he would necessarily cook in a team that's trying to control the possession in a game. Same thing goes for Acuna.
I hear the point, but I disagree on the player. I think he could.
Yeah, you know, this is just the way that I see it. Like, defenders, I'm more than happy to entertain the idea, or central defending midfielders, fine, because pretty much everyone plays along the same lines. Like, your job is to defend. If you're Baleba, your job is to play from deep lying positions. Those positions might look a little bit different, but you're on the same part of the pitch for those positions. And maybe your outlets are a little bit different, but again, you know, there's a lot of similarities. Same thing, you know, when it comes to like an Anthony Robinson or a Kirkes, right? Defenders, I feel like Premier League proven, I'm fine with that. I just become very hesitant with trying to buy attackers from the Premier League, lower level teams, because to be honest with you, I don't remember the last one that a high level team bought from a low level team in an attacking position that came in and had the same energy. And, you know, Jack Grealish was bought for £100 million, and he's probably given them £20 million of output. And that's the nearest one I can think.
Yeah. Mahrez is
yeah, but you know, that's one, right? That's
Sadio.
one.
Yeah,
Sadio.
Sadio came from Southampton.
Okay, but also, hold on. Here's again. I hear those points, but Mahrez was bought like 9 years ago, and Sadio was bought what, 7-8 years ago? Like, when did we buy him? 2017, and Mahrez was right after Leicester won the championship, which was what, 2015. So that's almost a decade since the two examples that you guys thought of that you could throw at me. That, I mean, again, maybe I'm just being wary, but like, I just feel like that sort of translation from Premier League.
What do you think's changed? Okay, if you're mentioning timescales, what do you think's changed? Because those players are better than most of the wingers that are in the Premier now.
Not only that as well, the thing as well is, Mike, most of the teams now don't really do business, because it used to be, right, to go and play for the bigger teams was like a privilege. Now most teams are kind of on par. A lot of teams in the league, like, you got Bournemouth, you got even Forest now.
Yeah,
They're like,
they
what?
don't get spanked
Do I need
anymore.
to go Arsenal? We beat these teams. You know what I mean? We can beat them too. So where before it used to be like, oh my days, it was like that jump up. It was just like amazing. Forest were like, well, I'm going to be in the Champions League next season anyway. So do I really need to move anywhere? Not really. Like, I think that's the difference. I think a lot of the teams have improved. So, but go on, G. You're in the building, man.
Nah, I mean, we signed one player last summer, like, so I don't know if we're gonna do all of these silence that you're not talking about. Like, these sound great. Don't get twisted. I like it. Like, Cav was talking about him, Kudos, and like you're talking about Verts, and that. I'm literally sitting there. I'm like, yo, these sound sick, you know. But we signed one player. I don't know if we're gonna do that.
Well, I think the reason, G, is because I think in the embargo section of Slot's presser, he's said that yes, we only signed one player. We want between him and Hughes, they agreed that they're going to assess the squad this season. They've done that assessment, and now they know what areas they're going to improve. So they've said said so many words that leads us to believe that there's going to be signings.
I think the maximum changes I think you'll see are 4. And I think that you'll have to see 4 players leave. Like we'll know who we sign based on who we let go. Like we will go 1 for 1. But the question is, like, to me, at maximum, I can really only think of like 5 players that realistically would be leaving this season. And one of those players would be leaving because he's not re-signing a contract. The other 4 are players that I just don't see getting the team enough, or players that I think that he's completely lost confidence in. And I think it would be unrealistic to say that Liverpool are going to sign more than 4 players, even if we didn't get rid of players, even if we had the ability to do that. That's just never really been our style. I think the biggest window that we've had in recent years is 3.
But then that's the thing, though, Mike. We're looking at
4. My bad. The one with but Endo was like the caveat signing at the very end.
We're looking,
it was 12 million.
Jurgen Klopp is still here. It's a different manager. He might need something different. So, and if Jurgen Klopp was still here, then I'd totally agree. I'd be like, yeah, the way we always do business is like this, right? We kind of assess the squad, and we're like, he trusted certain players in the team more than what this new manager would. But now we have a new manager. He's given these boys the whole season to show him what they're about. Yeah. And now he's going to want to put a stamp on the team. And for him to put a stamp on the team, obviously, I'm not speaking as if I know what he wants to do. But if I go off of what majority has been saying this season, we need a new left back. We need a centre back. That's already 2 positions. We need a forward. That's already 3. We possibly need someone, a creative midfielder in there. That's 4. And we possibly need a defensive midfielder or a ball-playing midfielder. So that's 5.
Don't forget the right back.
Nah, I think right back we're cool. Unless Trent goes in it, then obviously we're going to have to get a right back. That's what I mean. We're going to have to do that kind of business based on what we've looked at this season. And I think that we sort that out, yeah, it's a wrap.
I feel like we're gonna sign, if we let's say all those like positions that you just named, right? I feel like we're gonna don't get twisted. Listen, the names that you mentioned, Ramthwaite and all them, man, yo, that's like top tier kind of, you know what I mean, like players. I don't see that happening because you can't really sign a Bramthwaite and you can't really sign a Hato with what promise you're going to give them for next season. I have no idea. Bramthwaite ain't leaving Everton to sit on the bench at Liverpool. That ain't happening. You know what I'm saying? If he's leaving to play. And at a team like Liverpool, realistically, you ain't really playing that centre back because there's already 2 guys who are guaranteed to always play. So he's not a player, I feel anyway, that would walk into a situation of, I'm just going to come here and play X amount of games. He's more likely to go to I'll be honest, if Man United had done a bit better, he would have gone there. That would have been a perfect move just to go there because he's more than likely going to play, and you're playing obviously for a bigger club.
Do you think though, G, when you look at the fact
level of
that,
player we need to look at?
But do you think though, when we look at the fact that Kwanzaa starts the season, gets pulled for Kanate plays well and sticks there, but the minute Kanate hasn't performed, Kwanzaa's been put back in. I mean, there's only a couple of games ago that Kwanzaa gets pulled on 45 because he's on a yellow card, and Slot ain't taking that risk, and he sees him as too aggressive and he didn't want to take the risk, so he puts Kwanzaa in. I think the thing with Slot is, from what I've seen from him this season, is if you perform, you stay in. But the minute you don't, I'm okay to change it. And then if that guy that comes in performs well, he stays. Because you can talk about the rotation we've been seeing with Diaz and Gakpo. And now with Gakpo, I know he was out, he's only just come back, but if he was fit, he's playing. He's cemented that left wing until such a point that he isn't performing, and then he changes it again. And I think that actually there is loyalty there with Slot, and actually players have performed so well that they've almost forced him to select him again. But actually, we've seen him often this season when they've not been on it, he's been quick to change. And I do think that that's a lot quicker than maybe what we've had under Klopp. And I think loyalty's kept players on the pitch for longer than maybe it will do under Slot. And I just think there's part of that argument when you say like players coming in thinking, am I going to play? Well, yeah, if you're good enough, you will. You will. You know, and if you're Branthwaite and you don't think you're good enough to get in ahead of Konate and understandably Virgil, then and you don't think you're good enough to get ahead of Konate or Kwanzaa, okay, then don't come then, because that's the mentality you need to be having. Yeah, I don't think it's just a foregone conclusion that you join and think, I'm never going to get ahead of these guys. I think we've seen this season that he will change it if you can.
He will, but like the Kwanzaa Konate one that you mentioned, I'm thinking, I don't feel like he's changed. Like, yeah, bar the not Kwanzaa starting the season, obviously that's that anyway. And to be honest, I feel like over a season, unless Kwanzaa performed out of his skin, I feel like Konate would have come in regardless anyway. And to be honest, even if he did, I still think he would have put Konate in and preferred Konate over a period of time. But obviously we don't know because Kwanzaa ended up getting subbed, right? And I still think even the fact that, you know, he's taken Konate off the other day at 45, I don't feel like he would look at the next game and be like, well, yeah, I've got even if Kwanzaa performed at this like optimum level, I don't feel like he would change Konate. And yeah, I mean, because there's a partnership there. I get it. Yes, like obviously have the mentality that you feel that you can get into the team, and Branthwaite probably would have that mentality, but at the same time, like I don't know, like you would have to weigh up. I feel, because you'd have to weigh up and think to yourself, okay, yes, I feel like I can get into the team, no worries. So that gives the manager some type of headache, right? But if Konate is as good as we say he is, you're not. I just don't see like where you're going to come in and think, yeah, if he just performs badly in a couple games, like I don't see the manager just saying, yeah, fuck it, I'm just gonna try this guy and then go from there. And then if this kind of if Konate is at the level that we think or say he is, if he can easily be that replaced, then he's not been at. Then I'm sorry, he can't have been at that level, because the reality is we're talking centre back, left wing. Now I agree with you, but if we're being honest, the left wing options ain't not really that kind of level. So you can switch that around, and the attackers you can do that. They're not Mo Salah. Salah is literally the only one who performs at this stupid level. The rest of them, you can see that they all need, you know, a game here, a game there. So you can do Gakpo Diaz. Whoever decides to play well is the one that's going to stay. And I just don't think he will do that at centre back. But listen, like I said, I just think it's the level of play. Hato makes sense. He's young. Even if he doesn't start, it doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean? Like he's still got time on his hands, you know, in that kind of sense. But I just feel someone like Branthwaite, listen, I would love to have him in. I think he's, just like En said, I think he's dope. Like I genuinely believe he's dope. But I just think we're not going to go for that. Like you're going to need to go for someone who is happy with the knowledge of, you know what, I'm going to most likely be a third choice option here. If I can break in, great. But the reality is I'm looking at third choice, League Cup games, couple Prem games. If, you know, someone gets injured, and obviously Van Dijk, if he, you know, something happens to him and etc. So
yeah,
I think or
you're a player that can play. If we're talking about centre backs, you can play at 4 as well. That's another way of getting in. Yeah, because I agree, the centre back partnership probably isn't going to want to break. Yeah, bit different to the forward lines. I agree, because it's a bit more fluid. I mean, if you look at like the centre forward, you know, Nunes and Jota are right there. Neither of them touched pitch yesterday. So I think You're probably right when it comes to the centre back position. Even if you're a player that thinks you're good enough to come in and play for Liverpool, you've got to be better than what's currently there. And what's currently there is really good and probably going to be really good for the next few years as well. So probably is the toughest position to try and break in ahead of, because it's a partnership. Because I would say that one of our best performers this season is Ryan Gravenberch. So I'm thinking we need a 6, but Jesus, who's going to come in and replace Ryan Gravenberch? You ain't getting him out the side at the minute. But actually, it's probably easier to replace Gravenberch than it is Virgil's partner, because it's a partnership that you're breaking up, not just an individual position. So you're probably quite right. Yeah.
No, listen, I think it's fair. I just want to see what we kind of do in that aspect and trying to get these players in. Do you know? Because we get these kind of players in, bro. I think I'm just hoping the manager goes, right, I need those players, and that's what I want, and that's what we're gonna go and get. Instead of going, well, we can't get him, and we can't get him, and you're going to be outpriced there, and you're going to be outpriced there. It's like, nah, bro, I get them, bro.
You know, we don't get into bidding wars. Like, we don't, like, if we get told, let's say 100 and what's this? I don't know, like 150 million as an example, but then someone else comes in. In fact, no, that's a bit too extreme. I don't think many teams will come in for 100.
Say like 80. Say Isak starts from like 80.
Yeah,
they would. Yeah, and then would we go and do what? Like where we?
Yeah,
going?
do you think that we'll just keep we'll do the whole? I reckon we just keep bidding.
We might be able to get 70 for Nunes, bro. We slap that down, and then whatever we get in the kitty,
the only way Isak leaves is if they're not in the Champions League, which means they have to finish in 6th. At least in my opinion, that's the only way I think that he would have the personal sign off to leave that club. Because if they get Champions League, it's like, okay, I can stay here. Clearly, they have great support. Newcastle is not a bad club to play for. And they're on the way up, and they have the richest owners in the world. So, they just need some successful seasons in succession so that they can get past the FFP rules. And we all know that as long as they're legally allowed to do it, they can buy anybody they want, whenever they want, as long as the other player says yes. Money is not an option.
They did offer him up, though, in the summer, didn't they? But big up to Honesty. He says, big up the man. Question on the players like Cunha, and Buemo, very good for their clubs, but different gravy playing for a top 6 club. Different pressure. Do you think they can handle that? For an example, look at Neto at Chelsea.
I think
they could.
I think the difference is they're joining us, and they're not joining Chelsea. We have a strategy. We have a clear profile when it comes to what type of personality we're after, how hard did they work, how did they, integrate into the squad, how, happy are they and how did they respond to having to fight their way into the team and starting off on the bench and stuff. We assess all of that. We also assess that their ability on the pitch and their partnerships on the pitch, and are they intelligent enough to read what the manager can do and stuff. And it's probably why we are so risk adverse when it comes to spending money on players, is because it has to tick so many boxes. And often we'll sign players that you're like, okay, probably feels like a bit of a B choice, but actually they tick so many boxes that it's less of a risk. It's still money spent. And let's face it, it's got us to a great point in that strategy. So I think that there's certain clubs at the moment that you'll go to that are the traditional top 6, but actually you go there to waste time, to be honest with you, in your career. You go to Spurs, you're wasting your time. You go to Man United at the minute, you're wasting your time. You go to Chelsea, you're wasting your time. For different reasons. You're not going there to progress as a footballer. You're not going there to improve. You're not going there to win trophies. It's a big club. You think you're doing well by going there, but you're really not. If you're that good, you're probably better off staying where you're at, or going somewhere. If you're playing Premier League, going somewhere in Europe, and then come back and play for either Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City at this current point in time, because they're clubs that can offer you real progression in your career, I think. But Neto is one of those. Great player, obviously injury prone. Chelsea weren't. It might still work. I could be proven wrong, but I don't think it will, because it's like Nkunku, great player. Once upon a time, we wanted him at Liverpool. quality before he went to Chelsea. Goes to Chelsea, yeah. The system, the setup, it's not there. There's no. There obviously is a strategy, but their strategy is so fluid, it's so loose, it's not precise like Liverpool. So ultimately, you've got to be one of the best players in the world to succeed there. Or you'll be a great player, great player like Cole Palmer, but it'll amount to nothing. It will ultimately amount to nothing. You'll have great periods in the season, you'll have great games, but you'll look back and it will all be complete waste. And he'll probably be a player that in the summer's probably thinking, can I get a move somewhere else? Because I don't think I'm going to win trophies here. And there's only so long I can hang around. And that we're talking about a top club in Chelsea.
What about you, Mike and G as well? Can these guys, hack it at the top 6 clubs, especially with the pressure that comes with playing for a Liverpool? The expectation on winning every game, not just, some weeks you're right to kind of slack off. I'm not saying that the players would, but, they'll get a little blight if they don't win their games, where you already see, bro, we draw a game and the fan base lose their mind. So can they handle that kind of pressure?
I don't know if it's more pressure or if it's just being able to deal with the play styles, like being able to deal mentally with how teams set up against Liverpool, like being able to every single week. Oh, I'm not playing City this week, which means that they're not going to play football, which means that I now got to go up against 8 guys and I got to do this for 90 minutes. Are you going to be able to be that persistent? Are you going to be able to show up in the moment, even if you're having a terrible game? Do a Cody Gakpo, do a Mo Salah. The team hasn't created anything for 40 minutes. Are you going to give up, or are you going to find that one moment? Because ultimately, I think that it's not the pressure that gets the players. It's the difference in how other teams play them. When you're coming from the likes of a Wolves, or you're coming from the likes of, just for all intents purposes, let's just say like a Bournemouth of a couple years ago, just because my brain's not super sharp right now. But when you're coming from a team that plays that plays a low block and you're playing counter-attacking football, if you get an attacking opportunity, you're clearly going to have space because it's designed to catch the other team off guard. But what would happen if I flipped the script and I said, no, Brian Mbuemo, you're the right back who's playing the back 8 of Nottingham Forest at home. The team hasn't created anything for 70 minutes. Can you find something? Can you pull something? Can you pull the rabbit out of the fire? That's where I sort of don't know. And that's where my hesitation comes from. Because I think that pressure is big for everybody. I'm sure that the local pressure for a club like Wolves is also big. Obviously we're not privy to that information, but there's a whole ecosystem there. There's a whole ecosystem for Bournemouth and for Brighton and for Nottingham Forest and for Ipswich Town and for Luton Town and for every club in the world that has a serious following that sells out games in the Premier League. Maybe you just brush it off a little bit easier because you have an ego and you think that as long as I perform, a bigger club will come and pick me up. But there's still pressure that you have to deal with. To me, it's about the pressure on the pitch, not the pressure off the pitch. And when you're a club like Liverpool, you face pressure on the pitch every week because teams don't like to play football against you. They like to play smash and grab.
To add to the point, you talk about the player coming in and what's their experience and how would they handle coming up against a low block. And you're quite right, because it's a situation we come across quite a lot. But also these players have now under Slot got to be pretty intelligent, because what Liverpool have shown you this season is that we're finding different ways to win. And yesterday you seen that we let Man City have the ball and we'll play counter-attack football, and it was all about structurally being so sound and not leaving any gaps and covering each other and working incredibly hard to be in position and covering your teammate when he finds himself out of position, and just make hard work going into making sure that there's a defensive solid structure there to base your main gameplay off, and then you can do the counter attacks when you need to, right? That's one way that we won. And we've done the same when we played Chelsea, where we just let them have the ball early this season. We've also been the team that has possession of the ball and has got to find ways of breaking teams down with that low block, which we have done. And we've also been a team that's got possession of the ball and got to put our foot on it and slow things down because, hey, we don't need to come out and play. We've got our goals. You come and press us. And then there's the other way in which we're going to be high intensity. We're going to push the high line up. We're going to win the ball further up the pitch, and we're going to transition from ball recovery to attack quicker now, and more of a Jurgen Klopp type style. And we've demonstrated that we can do all them things this season. We've just done them in the right moments to get the results we need to go in a league title, which is incredibly impressive. But for players to be able to do that, they've got to be intelligent, so there's no point getting a player, and this would be my worry with the man you've got up on screen in Ishak is, when we're playing high press intensity stuff and your objective as a centre forward today is to press the goalkeeper, it's to press the centre backs. If the number 10 behind you, which is often Szoboszlai, has gone beyond you to press, you need to make sure that you're covering passing lanes. Maybe you drop into that 10 position. Maybe you've got to go over and cover, and double up and all these kinds of things. But then the next game, you're up against a low block and you've now got to try. The game isn't about pressing and winning the ball back early. Actually, when we win it back, because they're hoofing it up, the opposition's clearing the ball and Virgil's took it down and we're recovering it now and we're getting everybody set in position and we're building up from a standing start as the centre forward. It's not about pressing. It's not about, your positional thinking now is, can I get between the fullback and the centre back? Do I need to drop deep because there is no space to run in behind? So now I've got to link the play. And once I link it, do I push it out wide? How far do I drop? Do I spin in behind, or do I continue to remain in midfield so that there's space in behind for the wingers to drive into? And then you've got other games where it's end to end, and we expect, because it's an unwritten rule, if you're a Liverpool player, you know how to transition quick from back to front, especially if it's corners. Right. So all these ways in which our gameplay pans out. Right. And it seems like every team does that, but Liverpool do it the most. We can play direct, we can play short, we can play slow, we can play fast, we can play high press, we can play drop off. We do all these things. Have to have intelligent players to be able to do that. So when we think about players stepping in and handling the pressure and coming up against low blocks, there's also so many other things they've got to be able to handle and do well as well to be able to be a success at Liverpool. And look, if you find them players, you'll do incredibly well and you'll sustain the success you currently got. I think the other aspect as well is when you think about somebody that like Szoboszlai, right, had an incredible game yesterday, up and down the pitch, crazy energy, crazy strength, all really admirable, and he's clearly played his part in Liverpool doing well this season. But you've still got Mo Salah. And that's going to be the thing for us, is these players aren't just stepping in and learning that intelligence and learning how we play and can find their feet in that. And if they do well, great. No. They're probably going to have to step in and do that, as well as replacing goals and assists that is leaving the club in Mo Salah as well. And that's an incredible pressure to handle. So good luck to the next man stepping in is all I can say. And we've shown that we can do it because we've replaced big players in the past. But I certainly think that there's a great opportunity to join Liverpool right now and be the next man to lead us under a great manager that's got many different styles, that's clearly shown that we can go on and win major honours. But you've really got to be a good footballer and have a good footballing brain to just achieve that. And it might take big expenditure now where it's not in the past. Who knows? But we certainly just can't go out and get any old footballer that's gonna do well.
No, that's fair. G, I'll get your take as well, but big up to Honesty. Brighton won 110 million. I think that's from Belieber as well. And then Belieber or Tonali if they are the same price. Love for the super chats, my bro. G, Tonali or Belieber, and then obviously with the guys, and then we'll wrap it up in terms of Cunha and Buemo stepping up in the top 6.
I'll go Tonali. I think he's a bit more multifunctional. He's more experienced, has played at a very high level. And I don't feel like there's too much adaptation with a player like him. Not to say that I feel like Belieber needs a lot of adaptation to come in, but I just feel like Tonali, I don't know, that he's got this like presence about him like this presence of just that cultured kind of midfielder who can do all facets of the game. And I feel like he'd actually be better suited to what we would need than a Believer. I feel like he can do a bit more than a Believer, if I'm being honest with you. I think Believer got age on his side, and he's a very good player, like very, very good player as well. So it's a tough choice, man. You could pick anyone really, but I'll just go with Tonali. I think he's a lot more multifaceted than a Believer, and I feel like that's the kind of player I would love the team, to sign. But yeah, no. In regards to, honestly, it's tricky, man. I can't lie, it's hard, man, because I think what Cav kind of really summed it up, to be honest with you, like ultimately, yes, we can go out and get like all of these guys, and it's a bit like what Mike is saying as well. Like, I don't really care about off the pitch stuff. That's not really like, I'm not bothered about that, because as he said, they all got pressure. If I'm being honest, they probably got more pressure than playing for Liverpool anyway, when you actually think about it, because it's a different, or let me not say more. It's a different type of pressure playing for a team where so much is like required for you to play for this team, because everything rests on you. I'm talking Carol, the dinner lady over there. Her job depends on whether you stay in this league or not. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, you don't have that kind of problem where it's like, oh, we don't know if we're staying in the Premier League this season. Like, we don't. Like, we have a different type of problem. But theirs is, bro, if we get relegated, do you know how many jobs that we may potentially lose? And in some of these places, they're a one-team city. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like a Newcastle, as an example. So you also like that in itself is huge. It's massive, So again, I'm probably using the wrong word. I would say we just got a different type of pressure, than these guys, right? So it's more on the pitch, and I think, yeah, as I said, Cav subbed that up, man. You need to be real smart to play, in this kind of team, to be able to replace the goals. If Mo Salah was to leave, like, I also think it's from a business side of thing as well, like in terms of the perception of a Liverpool. Because if you let Mo Salah go, or if he does go, brother, you can't go out and sign just anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to, like it won't even look good unless the player literally is like down to a T, just perfect for slot system. Then, bro, even just from a business standpoint, like to your shareholders and that, like they're gonna look at it and think, boy, I don't know, you guys are not the same team without Salah. And then you go out and sign, as an example, right? You let Salah go. I fucks with Mbeumo. But let's just say you just get Mbeumo to just come in. You don't sign Isak. You don't sign Florian Wirtz. You don't sign anybody else. Let's keep it a buck, bro. Like, do you think other teams are going to be shook at that? No way. I promise you. And that's not even disrespectful to Mbeumo, because I think he's a good player. But you're not looking at Liverpool.
It's not. Yeah.
They have a fear factor. Come on. But you get Isak, you get Mbeumo in, or Kudos. Okay. Says now I'm looking at Liverpool a bit differently, because I'm like, yes, you obviously it's Salah, so there's obviously going to be a bit of like, yeah, but they've not got no Salah, but okay, but they got the hottest, the second best striker in the Premier League, or for whatever you want to class them as, right? But they've got that level of striker to come in, and then they've got this guy from Brentford, Donny, who's been terrorizing these other teams for these last like few seasons he's been in the Premier League. Oh shit! All right. Then you've still got your Gakpos, who are obviously still then potentially anybody else to also come in. Yeah, that's where I would look at it. But it's for me, I always say this, is the perception more than anything that wins it or kills it for you. And I think that some of these players that we might sign, everyone's really, if I'm being honest, they're all the same level of player. Like, let's be real, like Mbeumo's like the same level as like a Kudos. Kudos is the same level as like these guys. They're all the same. So it's just about your own preference now. None of them are like top tier, other than maybe Isak. The rest are all like the same kind of level player. So it's about.
Do you not think
that you have?
Do you not think though, G? Because I couldn't care less what other people think. To be honest,
yeah, I know,
because we're so good. But do you not think, if we're going to have that conversation, that people should look at Liverpool and go, "Oh, they've signed Mbeumo, been at Brentford for a few years, decent player, but who knows?" That should change to, Liverpool are signing Mbeumo. Of course, they're going to make him a top player.
Yes,
because that's what we do.
Yes, yeah. There is that as well.
That's true.
There is blatantly that. There is like, it's you know what it is. I agree with what you're saying, and I didn't mean it in a sense of like like you're signing because you care, what, not in terms of what we think, how we want people to like think about us. I mean it just more in terms of like
how it would be
obviously,
viewed, yeah, and how
yeah,
people,
like there's a message to be said. So
yeah,
especially, I think it's even more so if we win the Premier League, right? Like there's a message to be sent out there once you win that Premier League. If one of the Premier League all-time greats is leaving your club, there is a message that will be sent if you don't really replace that adequately. Now, I'm not saying that we won't do exactly what you just said, which is, yeah, like, bro, shit, they signed another Sadio Mane, another Salah, like who they're just going to turn into this freaking elite player in like 2 seasons. Or yes, there's going to be that level of that, but because it's Mo Salah, it's like if you lost Virgil, yeah, it doesn't matter who you sign. There's going to be that little ounce of just like, you know what, they're not Thanos, you know. You know what I mean? They can be beaten. Do you know what I mean? Like I've seen Captain America die, so clearly that we can maybe get at these guys. Like, do you get what I'm saying? So maybe like it's just more of that perception. We could sign Bastoni for all we care, but the reality is he ain't Van Dijk. So there's just that little bit of, oh, Man City without KDB, oh, Man City without Rodri. All of a sudden they're not invincible. Like you're looking at them, you're like, oh, they're just ordinary team. We can pop these guys all day long. But when they had these guys, nobody was saying that because they just looked imperious. Same way with Liverpool. You have these guys, we just look like fucking Salah, Trent. Even though we cuss Trent, it's still Trent Alexander-Arnold. They know that if they don't pick up this player, it's peak. Van Dijk, Van Dijk, the guy that nobody can get past. It's these Alisson, like these kind of players. I know for a fact when these guys are looking at them, like even in the tunnel, bro, there's a level of like, fuck's sake. We heard even Troy Deeney. What did he say about that? Van Dijk even smells nice? Like, why would you know that? Do you know what I mean? Like these kind of weird things. Like that's the kind of aura these players actually give off, and I just think that it's that message that will potentially be sent or not sent in the summer. Hence why I think this is a big summer for Liverpool, bro. Like if you win the league, I even think it's even more peak if you win the league, because I'm like, if you win it, right? Like there's more pressure for you to try and win this again. Like it's not just, oh yeah, we win it. Well, I'm not going 5 years again, Like we better
That's
go.
why we're going to be signing Isak, bro. That's why we're going to be signing Hato and Bramthwaite and Florian. That's why we're going to sign these guys.
I would love that.
But listen, we'll
rightfully so with the pressure. We're the most successful team in England. We're the current champions. This is what we'll be saying going into next season. So we should have that pressure. We should. And I'm so pleased we do it in such a way that we don't need to speak as much as you've alluded to, G. We don't have to send out messages. We don't have to do that through winning the transfer market. No. Yes. We keep ourselves to ourselves. We sign the players that we think we need, and the messages are sent when we sit top of the table towards the end of the season. I'd rather us continue to take that approach. But that's not to get away from the fact that if you're going to win the Premier League, then the expectation should be that you retain it the following season. And I know context, we may have a few changes in the squad forced upon us, and it might look like a different team starting next season. And we might even play differently because of that, because we've had to adapt to the current players that we've now got in. But the expectation will still remain that we should probably compete for the title. Because let's face it, like Man City will sign players in the summer again, and they will be back and they will be a top team. But how long do they need to be able to get back to where they were? Is next season going to be a season whereby you need to break 90 points to win the league again? Probably not. So it's always again what you're competing up against. And I think Arsenal will be back up there. It remains to be seen who they sign. Can they get a decent centre forward? If they do, they could be a real threat. Saka, how is he going to recover from that injury? Because I think they run the risk of ruining that lad, to be honest with you. So there's a lot of things to change. But when you talk about pressure, absolutely, we should always have pressure. We're Liverpool Football Club. We're not Brighton. We're not here to show how good of players we've got. No, we're here to win trophies. We're here to have European nights and all these things. So we should expect that pressure.
Sorry, but just before you go end, Ish said something in the group earlier on, like, this could be a three-peat for Arsenal right now. Second place, three-peat. Not many teams do it. Not many teams can do it. So
That's crazy.
a three-peat, you know, Man City done a three-peat. Oh, sorry, they're not four-peat, really and truly.
Maybe the
But to do a
40.
three-peat of second place, I mean, that's something. That's something.
It could
Big up
even
If,
be
Man.
the same
Arsenal
again.
had no shame, they'd put that up on the Emirates. Like, Man
Oh no,
City
no, no,
put
no,
4 in a
Cap,
row.
they will be saying this next season. Like, I guarantee at least once next season, you'll see one of these Twitter accounts say, listen, guys, obviously we weren't good enough. We had injuries. The refs were against us. PGMOL, they were against us. But guess what? At least we've come second for the third season in a row. That shows real progression. And I feel that, you know, Arteta in his phase 10, I feel like now is the time for him to go and win the bloody league. Okay, no worries, guys. I'm not here to argue with you. Do your
No
thing.
worry, man. We'll have his second in man there to play. But listen, guys, big up, man. Cav, G, and obviously Mike as well. Thank you for taking the time out for jumping in chat. As always, man, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Great conversation. If you're watching it on the replay, man, it's easy. You know what I mean? I've already, you know, time stamped it for you guys, so made it easy if you want to skip through. And also in the comments, man, let me know what you guys think, man. What talking points did you guys enjoy? What you didn't? And I did see some of you guys giving Cav some grief in the chat for some reason. I don't know why, but fine. It's fine, isn't it? And then just to head out with the honesty for another super chat. Big up, man. Antonio Nusa, obviously that young Norwegian winger for Leipzig. Good player. I don't know if we need one more of them young bucks right now. We need some established duns on them wings now, especially if we don't know we're going to keep Mo Salah, bro. So let's see what happens, man. But listen, man, we're 11 points clear, top of the table. It's not done yet, but fingers crossed in the next, maybe on Wednesday, maybe we're celebrating, I don't know, an extra 3 points and Arsenal drop points again. And then we're like, oh, well, we're 11 clear now. And then they still have the game in hand. Who knows, man? But that'll be interesting. I'd love to win the Premier League before we play them. I even saw the video today on Twitter, you know, obviously of them giving us a guard of honor. That was quite interesting in the COVID times. But I would love to see it again with a packed stadium, man. That'll be quite fun. But still, listen, there's still 11 games left to play. Lot to play for, man. The boys just need to focus, and I think they're there. You know, I think the boys are locked in. Fingers crossed, no injuries, nothing like that. We'll just go win our games. I don't care how we get the 3 points. Just get the 3 points, and then we move on, man. Newcastle up next. I'll be live tomorrow 10 p.m. doing a preview for that one. And we try and find a way to beat these lot, bro, because they got some dangerous players in their team as well. Well,
We need Virgil to overtake that Dan Burn statistic tomorrow. So I'm happy with hoofball.
You say just play it long.
Wait, do we play? We don't play tomorrow, do we? We play Wednesday, right?
I'm doing
Wednesday.
a preview tomorrow.
Oh, my bad. You never know. You never know. Sometimes it's weird. I think this is like our 4th straight Wednesday of playing a game.
I think that's where it's going to be until, you know, we settle back down. I think that's how.
But
March is calm for us.
We
We only play Southampton. It's the only Premier League game we have in all of March.
I know, but at the same time, I think that's when the boys go away on international break as well, isn't it? So
Yeah, and we also have the cup final.
yeah. All right, Cav, G, Mike, big up to you guys. Chat, love for the love, peace.